The storm hit like a hammer, wind howling, snow blinding, and truckers trapped on a frozen highway with nowhere to go, but inside a tiny roadside diner. One woman was still standing. Her name was Miss Loretta, 73 years old. No staff. No backup. She had only one thing to offer: warmth. What she did that night didn't just save lives. It sparked something so powerful. A line of trucks stretched for miles the next morning, and none of them came for food. Loretta Carter wasn't supposed to be standing behind that diner counter anymore. 73 years old. Wrinkled hands that had flipped more pancakes than most folks had eaten. A tired back that still carried trays. Smile that hadn't faded, even when life tried to break her. Her husband Henry used to say Loretta could make a stranger feel like family before their coffee even cooled. Together, they built the little diner off Highway 18, the kind of place that didn't make headlines, but made memories. Truckers called it a pit stop. Locals called it a blessing. Henry passed 10 winters ago, quiet heart attack in his sleep. He left behind the diner a stack of bills, and a hole in Loretta's world that nothing could quite fill. Everyone expected her to shut it down, sell it off, retire. But Loretta didn't know how to stop serving. She showed up every morning, rain or shine, blizzard or blistering heat. Wiping down counters, humming old songs, keeping the coffee hot. She didn't have children, no family left nearby. But over the years, the truckers became her family. Strangers became regulars, and regulars, it became stories she held on to. In the quiet hours, the diner walls held thousands of conversations, some joyful, some heartbreaking, some whispered through tears, and Loretta listened to every one of them. She had a way of making people feel seen, really seen, like their pain mattered, like their joy was worth celebrating, like they weren't just passing through life alone. There was no neon sign, no website, no social media page, just a tiny building with fogged-up windows, the smell of bacon, and a woman who treated everyone like kin. That night, the sky had been warning folks all day. Thick clouds rolling low over the hills. Radio stations buzzing with alerts. A blizzard was coming. Truckers tried to beat it, hurrying through the last stretch of highway before the snow made it impassable. Some didn't make it. Around 9:40 p.m., the wind changed. Stopped blowing sideways and started screaming. Visibility dropped to nothing. On that long, lonely highway, 10 trucks ended up stranded. Engines running, diesel burning, but the warmth fading fast inside Loretta's diner. The bell above the door had gone silent hours ago. Not a soul had come in since sunset. Most of her staff had called out, but Loretta stayed. Ain't no storm. Gonna scare me off, she'd said, pouring herself a cup of tea. She looked out through the frosted glass windows. Snow danced like ghosts. Her old radio crackled with storm updates and highway closures. Then she saw headlights, then 2 more, then 2 more, then 5. One by one, truckers began pulling off the road and into the small parking lot outside her diner. But they didn't come inside. They couldn't. The storm was too fierce to even open their doors without, risking the wind ripping it off the hinges. Most stayed in their cabs, bundled in blankets, trying to wait it out. But the temperature was dropping fast. Loretta watched. From inside, heart pounding. 10 rigs, 10 lives. Maybe more. She could have locked up and gone home. No one would have blamed her. But instead, she put on her coat, she lit up the back stove, she pulled out every pot, pan she had, and she started cooking hot soup, bacon and eggs. Coffee by the gallon. Then she packed it all into old pie boxes and takeout containers and began to walk through the snow, 1 truck at a time. The wind nearly knocked her over. Her boots sank into the snow with every step, but she kept going. She banged on cab doors, shouting over the storm, "Y'all ain't freezing out here on my watch." One trucker, a 40-year-old named Dave, later said, "I thought I was hallucinating." This tiny woman knocking on my window with a thermos in one hand and a bag of food in the other. She looked like an angel, an angry apron-wearing angel. By 1 a.m., all 10 truckers had been fed. Loretta didn't. rest. She kept checking on them, even refilling their fuel tanks from her own reserve. She stayed up all night, watching, waiting, hoping the storm would break. And when dawn came, pink and gold behind the gray. The snow had stopped. One by one, engines roared back to life. The truckers, groggy and stiff, stepped out into the snow and turned toward the diner. But none of them forgot what she did, and neither did the world. The storm wasn't just coming. It had arrived. The radio crackled louder now. No music, no talk shows, just the shrill beep of weather alerts. A severe blizzard warning in effect for Greene County and surrounding areas. All non-essential travel is strongly discouraged. Power outages have been reported in multiple sectors. Emergency services may be delayed. Outside, the wind howled like a beast awakened, flinging snow sideways, slamming it against Loretta's diner like fists on a door. She turned the volume down. She didn't need a warning to know danger was outside. She could feel it in her bones, the way old folks do when something's wrong. The lights above her flickered once, twice, then. Darkness. The diner fell quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your heart beat louder in your ears. Loretta didn't flinch. She reached under the counter, pulled out a box of candles, and lit them one by one. Their small flames danced in the shadows, casting golden light against the diner walls. She lit the old wood stove in the back. Hadn't used it in years. But Henry always said, you don't throw out things that still work. The warmth returned, slow but steady. She wrapped a shawl tighter around her shoulders and moved to check the pantry. Not much left. A bag of flour, a few cans of soup, half a crate of eggs, some bacon, just enough for a few meals, maybe. And then dash headlights faint, like ghosts in the blizzard. A truck pulled into the lot. Then another, one by one. The beasts of the road arrived, 18-wheelers struggling through the storm, their drivers desperate for shelter or food, or just a place that wasn't frozen steel and empty roads. But none of them stepped out. They couldn't. The wind was too strong. The doors wouldn't open without risk. Some trucks didn't even shut their engines off, afraid they wouldn't start again. Loretta moved to the window, pressed her hand against the cold glass. 10 trucks, maybe more behind them, just sitting there. Trapped, she grabbed her coat. Not a fancy one, just the same old brown jacket she'd worn every winter since. Henry passed. She filled a kettle with water and set it on the stove. Coffee was still sacred, even in a blackout. Then she pulled out her emergency stash. Thermoses, foil wrap, plastic containers. Everything she could carry. All right, she whispered to herself, tying her scarf tight. Let's feed some people. Storm outside roared louder now. It screamed down the road, burying cars and signs, snapping branches from trees. In town, lights were blinking out one neighborhood at a time, power grid collapsing under the weight of ice. But Loretta's diner in her heart kept burning as she stepped outside with the first tray of food. The snow nearly blinded her. It came at her sideways, sharp as needles. The wind tugged at her coat, pushed her backward, made her stumble, but she didn't turn back. Not with people out there hungry, not while breath still came from her lungs. She banged on the first cab door. The driver cracked it open, eyes wide with disbelief. You're out here? Stammered. She just smiled and held out a thermos. Hot coffee. Careful, it bites back, she said with a wink. The man laughed, maybe for the first time in hours, maybe days. In that moment, that flicker of light in the middle of chaos was worth more than any tip she'd ever received. Behind her, the diner glowed with candlelight. A tiny island of warmth in a sea of white terror, and Loretta Carter. She moved through the snow like it was her mission, because it was. A mission to remind the world that kindness still existed. That even when everything shuts down, someone somewhere still cared enough to show up. The storm was just beginning. But so was something else. 10 trucks, 10 lives. 10 people sitting in the frozen dark, their breath fogging up windshields. Their hands tucked under armpits, doing anything they could to keep warm. Some hadn't eaten in hours. others in more than a day. The diesel was running low. The heat in the rigs had long given up. Inside, Loretta moved quickly, not out of panic, but purpose. She wasn't just cooking. She was fighting back against the cold, fighting for strangers she had never met, and still somehow loved like her. The wood stove crackled behind her, the only heat source left. She stood over a pot, stirring, adding little by little, stretching soup meant for 4 into bowls for 15. Bacon strips cut in half, biscuits thinned out to double the count. And when she opened the door, the wind rushed in like a scream. But she stood there, steady, shawl flapping like a flag. "This ain't no shelter," she called out into the blizzard, "but y'all are welcome to stay. As long as I've got coffee and heat." One by one they came. Truckers with red faces, cracked lips, trembling hands, men who'd hauled freight coast to coast without flinching, walking like children into a place that felt like something. Long-forgotten safety, Loretta handed each of them a cup first. Not just coffee, warmth, reassurance. A message. "You're not alone tonight." She cleared every table, set out whatever she had. Soup in mismatched bowls, toast with barely their butter, scrambled eggs from the last dozen. She moved like a storm herself, faster than her years should allow, reaching into her pantry, then into the emergency closet. Then, under the floorboards, out came blankets, a couple sleeping bags, even a patched-up electric heater from the 90s. No hesitation, no second-guessing, just action. It's quiet and full of love. One trucker, tears freezing on his lashes, whispered, "You sure you want to give away all this? What if you run out?" Loretta smiled. The kind of smile only someone who's lost a lot can wear and still mean it. "Baby," she said softly, "what I give, I don't lose." In the corner of the diner, her own dinner sat untouched. Canned greens, a piece of cornbread, aid. She slid it over to a young man shivering near the heater. "Eat sugar. You remind me of my grandson." She didn't have a grandson, but if she had, she'd want him fed. And as the night deepened, so did the silence. Not the scary kind, the sacred kind, where people stop talking because hearts are too full. Around her sat men who had driven through every kind of storm America had to offer, but none quite like this. Not the storm outside, the storm of warmth, sacrifice, and grace unfolding in a little roadside diner, run by a 73-year-old widow with nothing left to give except everything in a world that had become colder by the hour. Loretta Carter was the last standing flame. The snow didn't stop, not after midnight, not at 2. Not even as the clock crept toward dawn. It just kept falling, relentless, heavy, quiet, kind of quiet that presses against your ears like the deep end of a pool. Inside the diner, no one slept. They were too cold, too shaken, too grateful to close their eyes. The heat from the wood stove only stretched so far. Blankets were shared. Some sat close, shoulder to shoulder, while others simply held steaming mugs. Not even drinking, just holding on to warmth, like it was life itself. One trucker, young, barely 20, couldn't stop shaking. He hadn't layered up. Thought he'd beat the storm before it got bad. He was wrong. His lips were pale, his breath shallow. Loretta noticed. She moved toward him, slow but steady, then took his frozen hands into her own. "Breathe, baby. That's it. You're safe now." She rubbed his palms gently, whispered words she used to say to her husband during hard nights. Words she hadn't spoken aloud in years. "Lord, watch over this boy. Warm his bones. Let this roof hold through the night. No theatrics, no spotlight. Just a quiet prayer and a quiet storm around them."
8.
The men began to speak, not loud, not boasting, just talking. One told a story about hauling Christmas trees through North Dakota and hitting a moose. Another talked about missing his daughter's birthday, how she forgave him anyway. They laughed. They sighed. They listened. And somewhere in that little diner, something sacred started to grow, a bond. 10 men from 10 corners of the country, All strangers hours ago, now looking out for each other like brothers. One offered socks. Another shared a protein bar he'd hidden in his coat. Loretta watched them, eyes glistening. This place was built for nights like this, she whispered outside. The snow stacked higher against the glass, power lines down, road signs vanished. A world frozen in time, but inside. The diner glowed like a heartbeat. Small, steady, fierce. And in the back booth, Loretta sat for just a moment, hands folded, head bowed. "Please," she whispered, "just let the roof hold. Just one more night." And the wind howled louder as if answering her. But she didn't flinch. She just looked up and smiled. Because even in the darkest hour of the coldest night, Loretta Carter believed one thing above all: where there's kindness, their shelter scene opens with the soft light of morning breaking through the once stormy sky. The clouds are dissipating, leaving a peaceful stillness behind. The sounds of the storm are replaced by the quiet hum of the world coming back to life. As the storm subsides, the first rays of dawn break through the remnants of the chaos. The world is waking up, though not the same way it was before. The silence is different now, heavy with the weight of everything that's happened. Cut to the diner parking lot. The roads, once treacherous, now beginning to clear. Snowplows and trucks are passing by, the sound of engines blending with the morning breeze. The roads are clearing. The real work is only just beginning. By one, the truckers who'd found refuge in the diner step out, their boots crunching against the newly packed snow. They approach Loretta, their faces weary but softened by gratitude. Cut to the truckers stepping out of their trucks, walking toward Loretta. Each one shakes her hand with a silent thank you, their eyes conveying more than words ever could. A quiet nod, a pat on the shoulder, these are the only gestures she needs. They don't speak much. They don't need to. Her eyes say everything. The storm is over, but its echoes will last. In this moment, they're not just drivers. They're people. And Loretta has given them more than shelter. She's given them humanity when it was hardest to find. Cut to Loretta inside the diner, cleaning up the mess left by the storm. The shelves are nearly empty, but the place is still warm. It feels like the calm before something bigger, a quiet, resolute peace. And Loretta, she's cleaning up. Alone, the storm has left a mark on everything, the diner's shelves nearly bare. The floor strewn with remnants of chaos. But she doesn't expect anything in return. She never has. Cut to Loretta sweeping the floor, her face calm but thoughtful, her movements slow, almost meditative. The diner is still, save for the soft hiss of the coffee machine in the background. No applause, no grand gestures, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing she's done what was right. She doesn't need to be thanked, doesn't need recognition. The storm came. The world was at its worst. But in this small diner, in this small corner of the world, Loretta was the calm after the storm. Fade to the diner's sign outside, still swaying gently in the breeze, the world now a little quieter, a little kinder, and maybe that's enough. Scene opens with the diner's neon sign, flickering back to life in the early morning light. The camera lingers on the entrance, where Loretta is standing behind the counter, wiping down the surface. The place is quiet, the calm after the storm settling in her bones. The storm has passed. But Loretta's work is far from over. The diner. Her sanctuary hums with the routine of a new day. Quiet routine, where nothing extraordinary is expected. Cut to the sound of a low rumble in the distance. First, it's barely noticeable. Then, it grows louder. But sometimes life has a way of surprising us, and Loretta. She had no idea what was coming next. Camera cuts to the diner window. The rumbling grows louder, and then ... trucks appear.
Not.
Just one or two, but dozens, lining up in a slow procession. Their headlights pierce through the morning fog as they begin to pull into the parking lot, filling the space with their rumbling engines. The sound of engines, one after another. She watches, bewildered, as truck after truck rolls into the lot. It's not a few, it's dozens. The highway, it seems, has brought more than just drivers to her door. It's brought an army of gratitude. Cut to drivers stepping out of their trucks. Some are familiar faces from the day before, their eyes filled with quiet resolve. Others are new, but they all share the same purpose. Their eyes, like yesterday's drivers, are filled with something deeper than words. It's not just the faces she recognizes. It's the feeling in the air, the way the world feels different now. The drivers step out of their trucks, their hands full, their hearts heavy with something they can't wait to give. Cut to the trucks unloading. One by one, the drivers carry their gifts into the diner. Groceries, firewood, a brand new generator, and envelopes. Envelopes filled with donations, groceries to fill the shelves, firewood to keep the stove burning, a brand new generator to keep the lights on, and then envelopes. Envelopes thick with the weight of kindness, each one a small act of giving. Each one a reminder that humanity still exists even when the world feels lost. Cut to Loretta standing frozen in the middle of the diner. Her eyes are wide, overwhelmed as each trucker walks past her, carrying something meaningful. Finally, one trucker approaches, his face kind but serious. He hands her a laminated card. And then, one of them steps forward, a card in his hand. It's simple, yet it carries a message bigger than anything Loretta could have imagined. The trucker hands her the card. Loretta takes it, her hands trembling slightly as she reads aloud. From the Brotherhood of the Road to the heart of Highway 46. Cut to Loretta, her face softening as she looks at the card, overwhelmed by the gesture. Her hand reaches up to wipe a tear from her cheek. The camera lingers on her as she stands in the middle of the diner, the weight of the moment sinking in. The Brotherhood of the Road, they didn't forget. They never forget. And in this quiet diner, Loretta realized something she hadn't known before. Sometimes, the most unexpected kindness can change everything. Fade to a wide shot of the diner. The trucks parked outside, the drivers unloading their gifts, the sound of voices filling the air. The camera pans up to the sky, a soft light breaking through the clouds, and maybe, that's what it's all about. A small act of kindness, rippling out into something much bigger than herself. Something that reminds her, shh, not alone. Scene opens with Loretta standing alone in the diner, the laminated card still clutched in her hand. The truckers have gone, but the feeling of their kindness lingers in the air. The camera zooms in on Loretta's face as her hand shakes slightly, her eyes misting over, overwhelmed. Loretta stands there, the weight of what just happened settling in. She can hardly believe it. For a moment, she's frozen in place, tears welling in her eyes. Loretta looks out the window, seeing the empty parking lot, but her mind is full. Her breath catches as a tear slips down her cheek. She wipes it away quickly, as if to keep it from giving away too much. She's not forgotten. Not by the road. Not by those who travel it. The kindness she gave, without expecting a thing in return, has come back to her, and it's more than she ever could have imagined. Cut to a montage of months passing. The diner is now busier, with trucks parked outside all the time. Drivers stop by, some wave, some come inside for coffee. The once quiet diner has turned into a legendary stop. The story spreads quietly like a whisper among the truckers. Across the country, word gets out about the diner on Highway 46, a place where you can find more than just a hot meal. It's a place where kindness lives. Cut to the diner's exterior. It's the same neon sign now shines bright, and a new sign is displayed outside the diner, proudly reading, and months later, it's no longer just a stop. It's become something more, a legend for those who travel the long roads. A place where all are welcome, especially when the road gets hard. The camera focuses on the new sign outside the diner. All are welcome, especially when the road gets hard. Cut to a trucker entering the diner, smiling as he walks in. Loretta greets him with a warm, quiet smile. Their eyes meeting with a shared understanding of something greater than words. Sometimes, smallest kindness lights the biggest fires. And sometimes, the road leads us to someone who reminds us what humanity looks like. Scene fades to the diner at night. with soft lights spilling out from the windows. Loretta is cleaning, but there's a sense of peace in her movements now. The diner is full of life, a small beacon in the darkness of the world. And that's how the road, no matter how long, will always lead us to the people we need. Those who remind us that kindness, when given freely, can change everything.